Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ben from Universal Audio, and welcome back to another Luna Office Hours. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning, and hopefully, if you guys have already opened up Luna today, you found a couple, not just one, but two surprises in store. So this morning, literally just a little bit before we went to air, the 1.0.3 update just hit. So yet again, more amazing bug fixes, and I saw a stat that got fed to me: over 252 items of feedback from you guys, from everybody hitting the feedback button in Luna. 250 of those have been integrated and fixed in this update, which is just really cool to see. So that's one thing, but the reason we're here today is to talk about the other one, and that's because this man right here, Jacquire King. How's it going, man?
Going great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. So I was just telling people, not only is there an update to the app today, but there's also we finally are debuting the very first actual official Luna session.
I'm very excited. The cast track. It's awesome.
It's so
awesome.
cool,
And
man. Yeah, so it's now available if you open up the Luna app and you go into, it's like right when you open up the app. Here, actually, let me share my screen and show the people how to get to this bad boy. On the Create tab, right here on the upper right hand side, you'll see Luna Sessions. You hit the download, the Wine of Lebanon, read the fine print, hit agree and download, and you'll automatically start downloading the zip file for the session. And then you can open up this track that Jacquire and I are going to walk through here today on our office hours. But before we dive into that, Jacquire, how you doing, man?
I've been good. I've been because I have my own studio and it's private. I've been able to come and I've been mixing some stuff in Luna, and I've had some outside time, gotten a lot of projects done at home, got a lot of projects done at the studio. But I'm very good. I'm super thrilled that this time is actually here where we get to talk about this.
I know, right?
And people will actually more so. I mean, that people get to get it in their hands and play with it, and just sort of. I'm really curious what people's feedback is.
Yeah, and man, my mind flashes back to those couple of days down at United. It was just really fun, kind of a once in a lifetime sort of experience of having Studio A at United recording. Which is a Bill Putnam senior designed room like this. We couldn't have lined this up any better. But yeah, it was for people who didn't see our presentations over at NAMM, you want to just give them kind of like the quick kind of rundown of like what was the tracking and recording process like for the song?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, we were in United A, which is an amazing sounding room, and there's a big Focusrite console in there, and I remember you and I having a conversation about like, well, how do we set up? And we decided that, well, let's just, let's push the boundaries of what an Apollo setup can be. Let's integrate the room. Let's get the console involved. Obviously going to use a lot of unison stuff. They had a little BCM 10 BCM 10 in there, which we used for the guitars, and set all the musicians up out in the live room. Some good, decent amount of goboing. It's a big room, and it has a nice ambience to it. I guess I would describe it as it has a nice dimension of space. You really feel like you're in a bigger space without being echoey. It's very balanced. The drums sounded great in there. The piano was beautiful. And we took a day to get ourselves organized, hook everything up, troubleshoot, and work out the headphones and all that. And we spent pretty much spent a full day tracking the song, and then Cass came back the following day and did the vocal overdub. And then subsequent to that, so that was in December. That was early December. And then was it February or March? I guess it would have been.
I think it was February.
We
went right after NAMM. It was like a couple weeks after, because we came to NAMM and we talked about we brought the rough version of the session up on stage and kind of talked showed people through some of the tracking ideas and some of the techniques you pulled off there. But then you came back out here to Santa Cruz with Cass, and we did that string session, which was a new development for the song as well. And that we got to film here at the UA. At our main studio, our old home, my old home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that so that was
Go
strings,
ahead.
and then there was also a vocal overdub, right? That we did that day for
Oh,
Cass.
that's right. We did add the background vocals. That's when we did the background vocals, because up until that point, yeah, because when we showed the track at NAMM, it was still very much a work in progress. I don't think I'd even. Oh, I mean, I had mostly comped the vocals, but I made some changes after that, and then yeah, we did background vocals as well, and then I brought it back, then the session back here to my studio, south of Nashville, and yeah, mixed it in Luna.
Nice.
So, and I guess the mix is, I guess, with everything's been going on, I guess I finally completed the mix 2 weeks ago or something, to hand it off to you guys to sort of prep the delivery of these sessions. And just because we were talking about this earlier, we should just say now, because it popped into my mind.
Yeah.
You guys, and they're gonna fix this for you guys, and Ben might want to expand on this, but you'll notice in the session that you download that the automation for the vocal bus is off. Please turn it on. That will be corrected soon, but please turn it on. The reason it got left off is because after I printed the final mix, I turned the automation off on the vocal bus so that I could mute the vocal bus and then print an instrumental. And so it just kind of got left that way. It's a little bit of an oversight. They're going to totally fix it. Do you have anything to add to that, Ben?
Nope. I'll share my screen here so people can see what we're talking about. But I wanted to first kind of this is a good lay of the land of what Studio A looked like over at United. And some of you may be asking, like, man, doesn't that look a lot like Ocean Way Studio A? Yep. It is. It's changed names as it's changed hands over the years. So it's now back to its original name, which was United Recording Studio. Yeah, it was such a cool setup, and kind of having everybody all in the room together. And then we had you were manning the kind of one of a kind, or I guess it's like one of 10 of these ISA consoles.
They built 10 or 12 of them, yeah. So I think that there's definitely only a handful of them still, in operation, working today. I should also mention my dear friend Colton Lee was there with us and co-engineered this recording with me. So,
yeah, he did it.
We might see him in some of these pictures, but
yeah,
fantastic room. This is where Jack Joseph Puig was for a long time as his mix room, as his private mix room. Just unreal. That console is just so special.
It's so good. Well, and of course, like, not only is there this console in the front of the room, but then in the back of the room, you've just got a BCM10 sidecar loaded up with 1073s. No big deal.
No big deal.
No big deal. So you were using as I remember, the sidecar was basically, you're using that for the guitars, right?
Yeah, the two electric guitar amps. And you'll get, you guys will get this a PDF of this. This is the input setup sheet for the session. I kind of lagging behind and needed to make a correction on it before I get it to Ben to include. But yeah, we used the BCM10 just for the guitars. Guitar amps, and try most of the processing recording was done with the Unison pre's and the Apollo technology, the plugins and so forth. But we did want to incorporate the room and some of the gear in there. So
nice. Yeah, and I if you're a recording nerd like I am, like, instantly, I knew this is the one photo you guys all really wanted to see. So your drum mic configuration was really interesting. You've got kind of the standard stuff of some close mics, obviously, as talkback hanging out there. Overhead. Is this the stereo AEA ribbon mic?
Yeah, it is. It's the R88.
And then what's this guy?
It's the passive one. Well, I should just say that's the passive one. I know that they're putting out an active one. On that, on the R88, we also are using the Royer deboosters.
Yep. To
kind of elevate the gain a little bit. And then the mic over the shoulder is a C37A.
Oh, cool.
And that's just another. It's just that I find that that's a good mono placement mic. Colton has definitely been favoring that. We do that same thing here sometimes at my studio, and it's just a nice mono mic over the shoulder. You get because you get away from the cymbals, you get behind the kit, and you get a little bit of shadowing from the drummer's actual torso sonically. and you just get a lot of nice resonance. And because his back is close to the wall, it's just a nice place for low end. It's back from the cymbals, but you're getting basically where he's hitting all of the drums, including the kick drum. It's all on that side, so you just get like a different articulation and a nice kind of punchy sound back there.
Yeah. Well, it's cool too. It was really funny after the session. You know, coming back, and I can't remember what it was. I think I was like mixing a track, and you know, one of my default reverbs in my template is always the Ocean Way room. And of course, you know, you pull it up and like its default preset is drums A, which is this room with the drums in this exact spot. Like it is like that classic of a spot in that room for drums. So yeah, it was really fun because I've always experienced Ocean Wave mainly through the plugin or recordings that were made there. So actually being in on a session there and hearing it like with my own ears in that room, you're like, oh, like it felt familiar already, which was kind of crazy.
Totally. Well, yeah, it's the first time I'd recorded in there, and so yeah, I was very eager to put the drums there and just like check it out. You know, it's just reminds me of the very first time that I heard someone sing on an Elam 251. I got chills. I was like, oh wow, that mic that's the sound. That's what that is. You know, it's just like, whoa, there it is.
That's awesome.
So it was very cool.
Oh, by the way, Colton's on. He's on. What's up, Colton? See you on the Facebook chat there. Nice. So yeah, if you guys have extra nerdy questions that Jacquire and I aren't getting to, Colton's also a good source of truth about what was happening on the session.
Blow him up, yeah. For
exactly. Sure, well, let me. So here I've got Luna already popped open, and again, if you guys are just joining us, we're here talking about the very first Luna session available, and you can. Inside of Luna, you just open up the app, and here on the create page in that top right hand side, you'll see we added a new section called Luna Sessions where you can download this session file. You just click on this, read the legalese, hit agree and download. It'll pop open a browser, and then the result is you end up with let's see, yeah, here on my desktop, you'll end up with a zip file. It's about 4 gigs compressed. Not too bad considering, you know, this was all recorded, I believe, did we record this at 48 or was this at 96?
No, it's at 48, but with the strings, it just kind of turns into a lot. It's a lot of tracks, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you guys will notice there's 2 session files in here, and did our best to label these in a very obvious way. One is called Full Final Mix Session. This is the session that Jacquire turned into us as his final mix. So this has all of his plugins, all of his settings, one of the things I want to show you guys how to do today is how to pull back, you know, some of the unison processing that we were doing. There's all that information is preserved in the session, so you guys can kind of explore what he was using on the drums and keyboards, especially. But obviously, you know, this one, it's actually not that heavy of a session overall. You can just about open it on a quad DSP system. I think you need like 6 or 8 DSPs to fully get the session running. So what we did is we made a quad DSP optimized session. So this, you know, basically what we did is we committed the audio tracks. So all the effects on those are printed and committed and then brought back into the session. So then all the you'll see all the bus processing is still in place. All the third-party plugins have been, you know, they were all kind of in the audiophile area of it. But this allows you to still get in there and hear the Studer and the Neve and all of the UAD bus processing that Jacquire is doing, while also preserving the final mix and balance and everything. So yeah, it's kind of nice having it too. And you're probably asking yourselves, why is this one bigger than the other one? It's because it's all committed audio files. It's all the tracks printed from 0 are actually larger files than the one in the final edit. So let me just pop the session back open here. So this looks probably really familiar to you, doesn't it?
Absolutely, totally does.
Nice. So you know, layout, and is this kind of like your standard go-to layout for a session of bass, drums, guitars, keyboards, vocals, and then other stuff?
Yep, I always kind of do it in that order. Yeah, it's like I start with bass, end up with background vocals being the last thing. Nice. It's, you know, just kind of a holdover from days gone by working on analog tape.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
nice.
It's kind of, yeah, it's just
oh yeah, because there was actually a practical reason, right, why you would do it this way.
Yeah.
You always wanted the
on a
bass on the inner side. It had something to do with like where the low frequency information was on the heads, wasn't it?
Well, it's because on a playback head on a tape machine, the edge tracks, the tape tension is not quite as good,
Mm-hmm.
and so on we would have to you'd have to print SMPTE on track 24 so that you could run your desk automation.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really care about how that sounds, so we'd print that on 24 edge track, and then on the other side, the bass, you put the DI or the amp. Typically I start with the DI, because even though of course the high end is important on a bass, it doesn't have to be as stable as, say, your overheads or your vocal.
Yeah.
So just using those edge tracks where the tape tension is not as good, and so then the high frequency reproduction is going to be a little erratic. That's the reason that became a habit of so many engineers, and and that's, I learned that way, and that's just how it's always organized in my brain. It's like it just lays out left to right that way.
Exactly. Cool. So let's hear the song, and I'll kind of, as we're listening back here, so you guys can get an idea of what it sounds like. I'll kind of cruise through the session, pull up some channels, kind of tab you around. Hopefully you guys will kind of start seeing some of the processing and some of the signal flow. But then we'll kind of break that down and get and learn from the man himself how some of these decisions were made.
What's left to grieve? Currency, the bitter rain. After the flood, what remains? The wine of Lebanon. The wine of Lebanon. Left when harvest tugs upon her yoke, cruel garters around her choke. What's left to hope? Strap me down into your chair, whip me till I beg for air. The wine of Lebanon. After a year, pulling men from ear to ear, what holds her near? A lottery of empty night. What is left? What is right? The wine of Lebanon. The wine of Lebanon.
Dude, what a beautiful recording.
It sounds so good. Yeah, I like it. I mean, it sounds good to me. I like it.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's fun. I'm just seeing the chat over here. You know, people are picking up on the Pink Floyd vibes.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
it was not intention. It wasn't really intentional, but like when it started to kind of rear its head a little bit, we just fully embraced it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to do with. I think it has a lot to do with like the dry but like openness of the drums and some of the textures of the guitars and keyboards is kind of what really, for me, is what makes it feel like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's definitely, you know, it's fully in Cass's style of this, like, which is very different than, you know, I think my normal intuition for a lot of songs, right? It's like you're thinking like, cool, let me get the drums present, let me get vocals up. Like you just think like you want all of this like coming at you sort of vibes, whereas this is a little bit more of everything's kind of set back and kind of pushed in its own little bit of space, but it has a good cohesion to it without anything really, you know, it's a little bit more like in a jazz kind of realm in a sense, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It just has it all kind of just floats and hangs together. It's just kind of dreamy, which is cool. There's nothing really like aggressive, you know, like poking out, trying to be forceful in it. I mean, it just kind of lets the performances and the mood just kind of just live. Yeah, it's nice.
Totally. So this is, you know, I know this is one of your favorite features, and it is for me too. And this is a great way, like if you guys are opening up the session and trying to investigate and kind of see and learn what's going on and how you've put this mix together, the spill buttons are going to be your best friends. So, you know, by taking, you know, as we were kind of playing back, I was pulling up some of the chains and letting people kind of get a peek of what's going on in there. And as we keep on talking here, we'll do some examples where we can hear with and without for both the new summing and the tape, and we can solo some stuff up. And if you guys have questions, hit them up, you know, hit us up on the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them. But a good place to start is, think about the signal flow. So by hitting the spill button on the main fader, I'm now, Luna's automatically just showing me the tracks that are feeding the main fader, which are all of your buses. So you got bass, drums, guitars, keyboards, vocals, strings, and a keys reverb track that snuck in there undetected. It just it rolled in on its own. It was like, you know what? I don't want to go with the keys bus. I want to go straight to the main.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes that happens. You know, it's just like maybe it should have been, you know, put with the keys through the keys bus, but I think it's probably just a result of I wasn't using busing when we made the early rough mix of it. It was all just going to the main fader, and that just never got switched over.
Yep.
Would the sound have changed a little bit? Yeah, probably. But it's fine that way. Sometimes it's better to send effects and reverb returns right to the main as opposed to going through the bus processing. So
totally,
that's kind of it wasn't necessarily intentionally done that way, but I did notice it. But it sounded good the way it was, so I just left it alone.
Exactly. That's the golden rule right there. Like if it sounds good, it's good. That's it. You don't have to go any further. You don't have to go any further than that. So by hitting the spill button, you know, it now just it helps us isolate what all is feeding this, and also it makes it for, you can tell like this is where you did a lot of your work too. So you can see all the automation moves happening here on those bus tracks. So this is kind of, you know, it helps you craft the sound for those instruments as a single thing. You know, even though you have two inputs for the bass, or you have 10 tracks of drums, it allows you to kind of bring those together. And again, you guys can see I'm using this great shortcut called the spill button over and over again, because even from those, once you've shown those the buses that are feeding the main, you can hit spill on something, say like the drum bus, and now it's showing me just the drum track. So it's a really quick way to kind of navigate through a session and kind of thin out the view to exactly what it is you want to look at or be working on at the time. So yeah, man.
Yeah, I especially love it for just how clean it makes. You know, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna do some vocal automation. I don't need to see the rest of it. And when I flip back and forth between the two pages, it's just everything that I'm focusing on is just right there in front of me, and I don't have to, especially when you get to the edit page where you've got a lot of tracks like this, you might have to scroll quite a bit. And I just am so pumped on that feature and the way it works. I mean, it's just such a positive workflow thing.
Yeah. Oh man, someone just said the song was a perfect for the sunset that they're having right now. It is a very sunset style song, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Um,
It makes me think of being out under the stars, actually, too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a fun song to put on in headphones. Just kind of like let it crank it, and yeah, there's so much to enjoy and so much detail and texture in there. But and of course, like it's fun to listen to in the full mix. But then the great part about what we're doing here is by getting the session file, you can come in here and you can solo up just the drums, and kind of really start to learn, kind of learn the sounds, but also play around with what the summing and tape and UAD or any processing that you want to play with. These are just incredibly well recorded tracks in a beautiful studio with incredible musicians. Like everything about this and that chain of the signal chain is just fantastic. So it's a great thing to be able to play around with. So yeah, you can do things like this of solo up the drums and pull up the processing here that you've got on the drum bus. Looks like again you kept it pretty simple. I'm really intrigued with your distressor settings. Because you put it on nuke mode, which like typically when you think like, oh, I'm gonna put the distressor in nuke mode, you're about to go crazy with it and see the meters all lighting up. But I notice you're being highly reasonable, Jacquire.
Yeah, well, I mean, the nuke mode is typically when I'm using a distressor on a parallel bus. That's kind of what I'll use it on, that because the attack and release are so adjustable. Like you can, the range of fast to slow is so great. You can really, sometimes like on a rock drum kit, I might have, 14 dB of compression in this mode. And it really just tightens up the transient energy and punch of the drums while also like really jacking up the ambient. So it's kind of a good move. Okay. So two things I want to say. The one thing I want to say about at this I was thinking about is that, even when you're playing it back and you're opening up the processing, the compression and stuff, yeah, I mean, I'm not like super heavy handed with compression all the time. Just because a compressor is in place doesn't mean that it should be like hammering down on something. It's control. Now, observing this versus maybe what I would do in another DAW, without naming names, I'd have to do more compression in another platform because what Luna is giving us is you get that tape emulation. So you get a softening of transients, the gluing effect that we now crave in compression. And then the Neve busing also is adding to that warmth and texture and depth. Yeah. So, I'm working more. I always try to work as simple as possible, but in Luna, I'm able to work even more simpler.
Yeah.
And simpler. And it's just like there's stuff not hitting as hard or being used as aggressively. Yes, it is a pretty light touch here on the drums for sure.
Well, it's cool too. So it's a light touch both in what you're doing here, but then also you've got the mix, like a third maybe here. So with it being in the even order harmonics, so you're getting kind of that smooth saturation, just a little bit of a little bit of control here, and then you're just being highly reasonable on all fronts here, sir. Which is really, it's a good example to see, because so often when especially for mixing demos, a lot of times you really want to hit things hard and really push it to the edge, where the edge may not always be the appropriate thing to do.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to take this in context. The floatiness and the energy and dynamic of the performance I wouldn't say it's subdued, but it's not aggressive either. So it's not an aggressive treatment that it needs. The other little thought that I was having that I wanted to share when Ben was talking about the spill feature is, I think this is a good opportunity for some folks that have not recorded in a situation where you have a bunch of musicians on the floor and you've possibly never recorded something with leakage where, because when you solo these drums up, you're going to hear the piano, you're going to hear the other things happening in the room, and it's totally acceptable and manageable. And to me, actually, the depth and beauty of a recording is enhanced by that leakage being there. It has to be a manageable amount. So I'm also excited that with the way that this is being presented, the opportunity to to listen to the raw tracks in this way, you're going to get to hear, you know, some leakage, and it maybe give some of you that have not had the experience of that kind of a perspective on what that is, or those of you that have experienced it, give you confidence in what, you know, what is workable. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So let's hear what these drums sound like in solo, and I'm confident you guys are going to hear some of the rest of the band in there as we're doing it too.
Hey Ben, just turn the distressor off, because I see, like, on the snare drum, I see like up to 7 dB of compression sometimes. Let's just see what the change is, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
See how when the compressor is going to go back in, how it really draws the snare drum out.
Mm-hmm.
You can really hear the
yeah, you hear the kick in the
buzz.
snare.
You can hear the buzz of the snares. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can hear it. It definitely, it pulls it forward just a little bit, but it rounds out. I love how it's treating the bottom too.
Yeah, exactly.
The way it kind of controls it. And same with the Neve, the 1081 that you have on here. You know, you're giving it some low end love, kind of carving out a little bit of that 270, and then a touch of air up there at 15. But again, yeah, as we were playing back, you guys saw, we're kind of just switching stuff in and out to give you a chance to kind of. To me, that's the funnest part about having access to a session like this, is to be able to just like switch the tape on and off, switch the Neve on and off, and then of course, if hearing these things is if it's not coming to you right away, the great thing is you can come in here and you can overdo it. You can kind of take what Jacquire did and hear what does too much Neve summing sound like, and then easily go back. So this is with the headroom control cranked all the way to the right. So this should be incredibly crunchy and saturated now, even though these are seemingly soft. Hear the color difference that I just added. Mm-hmm. I can hear how that's just kind of, it flattens things out a little bit more. It's adding, again, it's really enhancing the saturation of it. But the other reason why I really wanted to show you guys the drums is, you'll notice, if you guys have been watching Office Hours, you're like, Juno 106 Tetra, like, Ben, that looks a lot like your inputs. Yeah, because the session will automatically remap to whatever Apollo you're using. So whether it's a twin, racks, or whatever your setup is, Luna will it'll honor that, and it'll keep your inputs as you're used to seeing them. So then what you can do is you can reassign these. So I'm going to reassign it to just TR8S, because that's a mic preamp on my X8. So now, like with the snare track, for instance, when I put this track into record, now loading the API Vision and distressor settings that you used when tracking the song.
Right.
And this is, to me, man, this is like that killer feature of Luna, is the fact that this stuff gets saved with the set. We could go back to United tomorrow. No, we can't, because that's illegal. But we could go back to the studio, pull the session up, plug in the same mics, plug in, use and reassign the inputs, record enable, and we've got the signal, the same tracking signal path that we were using months ago.
Yeah, we got a great starting fast. We're right back to where we started, and we can make adjustments from there. Totally.
Mm-hmm, exactly. So yeah, and so you can kind of go through since I've got these all in one input, they're going to cancel each other out as we go through. But this allows you to kind of explore, the preamp and kind of the record effect choices that you were making on the way in. Which obviously, these are all made in context. We're all, you're in the studio, you're in the control room, making these decisions on the fly and committing to them.
Right.
Do you have any like strategies or kind of recommendations for people if they're doing a project similar to this of recording a band and they want to follow in the Jacquire King kind of workflow?
Well, I mean, there's nothing super specific that you would take away from this and like literally copy, of course, but you can use it as it's just a good insight into like where I typically would choose things and how I would start and how much EQ and compression am I using on the way in? Like what, for a dynamic mic on the snare drum, like what is my gain setting, on the way in? And just sort of get some insights like that, and then of course everything is, contextual and, so you just, but it's just like, you can get a little bit of a thought process, get a little bit inside the thought process and see how much lifting I'm doing on the way in and what sort of choices I'm making. And that things are, how I'm pairing different things, how I'm EQing maybe the close mics versus some of the like the overheads or other things, and kind of where I'm creating different spaces, not only in the mix, which is I think everybody's really used to seeing like a mix setup, but this is kind of cool because it gives you an opportunity to see, okay, well, what was the work done before that made it sound like it is in the mix? So that's what I'd add about that. It's hopefully just gives you like a little bit of insight into the thought process as opposed to like the specifics to take away.
Exactly, because you're always, it's gonna be a different drum set, a different drummer, a different microphone, different everything about it. Every recording context is different. But what's important to think about is like the end result, like what got tracked to, what's on that track, what that result is, and then being able to see and kind of get some clues as to how you got there. Is the really fascinating thing that has never really been possible before Luna.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the features of this session coming out that I'm really excited for, just to, because you can talk about it, but this really gives people an opportunity, because listen, you can, on my snare drum track, you can set up your own snare drum, use that input setting and just see what it sounds like. And then adjust it from there with your microphones and your snare drum and your space. And that's kind of just like a cool thing. It's like a cool thing. Yeah. Obviously it should be different because it's a different song, different recording, different time, everything, you're going to have to adjust it. But, I think that's a cool opportunity that like really has not really been done before.
Oh, totally. Well, and the other thing too, that I think is going to be really fun and interesting for people to play around with is stuff like the tape and the Neve summing aspects of it. So, you said, I remember we kind of spoke about this, at the session itself, when you're recording in, obviously when you're in record mode, Luna, because we're using, with accelerated real-time monitoring, the tracks they're getting the unison preamps, they're getting record effects, they're hitting inserts, UAD inserts on the tracks, and then going straight to the cues or going straight to the mains. And actually, ARM will bypass the tape, it'll bypass the buses, so you don't hear it with this processing while you're tracking, in order to give you the low latency experience that everybody wants. But then as soon as you're done recording and you go play and you hit playback, just like you would have on a real tape machine, it's now coming off the repro head, in a sense of you're no longer monitoring live off the console, you're now monitoring off the tape itself. Can you describe kind of what that experience was like for you and the musicians in the studio?
Yeah, well, I was so busy thinking about, what we were doing in terms of, guiding the session and, engineering with Colton and all that stuff. And just everything that was going on, I was just very much in that mode. And then once we got some performances that we kind of listened back to, and then you hear the tape, I was just flooded with the feeling of, oh, wow, I haven't experienced this in a long time in the studio, unless I've been using tape. because of the way it sounds. Like, oh wow, this sounds really good. It just hit me like a ton of bricks. It was really cool. And I remember commenting in that moment about that feeling, because what's interesting when you're typically recording in a DAW, sometimes I feel like the live, when you're recording and the way you're hearing it on input in a DAW, almost sounds better than the playback, because it's still like, when you're listening to it on input, it's still kind of living and breathing. But then when you play it back from the digital source, it's just like, it's frozen. It's a picture of what that was.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, analog is a similar thing, but it has different properties and different texture, and it adds color. So, getting those things, it was kind of like, it was a really profound feeling. I kind of got chills, and it felt like it was like an emotional thing. It's like, wow, I haven't experienced this in a while. So it was really, really cool.
Yeah, totally. And I remember having the similar sort of thing. I've kind of grown up using all digital stuff, but I remember the very first time I ever had a tape session, it felt different when they played it back. And I was younger and couldn't hear as well as I can hear now for that sort of detail. But like, that's what it was. It was a feeling thing. It was like an emotional connection to the performance that only got better when playing it back. And I was like, I hadn't experienced that in a really long time, since I don't get to work on tape very often. And I can definitely echo what you were feeling.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. And so, so the way that this behaves in ARM, it's just like, it turns off, you're basically on input monitoring, which, you have to be, like if you were on tape. And so and then you hit that playback, and you're off the playback head, and it's just like, oh, it's like, it just sounds, hopefully it sounds better, Yeah. Just a really gratifying, experience, because it feels like it elevates. It's like, oh, okay, now it even sounds like a record more.
Yeah. Well, and a cool thing that you guys can play with at home on this is getting in here, and if you click on any of the tape inserts, you can actually play around with loading up different tape machines. You can even swap it out and hear the difference between like a Studer and an Oxide. But on Studer itself, you can get in there and you can mess around with which tape formula you're rocking, the IPS, and again, the purpose of this isn't just to go in there and be all willy. It's to try to learn and try to absorb and internalize what these are doing sonically to the tracks. Because the more that you can kind of understand what the Studer, what the tape extensions, what the new summing, the more you understand what those can do to a track, the more skillful you're going to be able to be in applying it to your own mixes. Do you have any recommendations for people for like what to be listening for and how to be, any tips for kind of using the Studer tape or the tape extensions inside of Luna?
Well, I would, unless somebody has a really pretty good understanding of how to actually adjust a tape machine, don't go too crazy tweaking it. I mean, I think the things that are easy to hear initially are change. Yeah. Don't dive too deep into changing. Don't go like screwing with the bias and the EQs. Start with the tape formula. Yeah. Listen to the different tape formulas. Listen to what they sound like at the different speeds. The IPS, and then also changing the elevation. Like 250 and 456 are meant to be, they're lower elevation tapes. So +3 is more where they generally live. So if you're on the 250 emulation and you crank it up, you crank the elevation up to +9, it's really going to get saturated. Whereas GP9, which is a more modern tape than 250, was designed to work at those higher levels. So it's not going to sound as saturated at +9. And so just play with all those things, because also when you at 30 inches per second, you have one EQ curve. That it's all AES. At 15, you can select between NAB and CCIR. NAB being the American standard, CCIR being the European standard. The NAB is weighted more towards the low end. CCIR is weighted more towards the high frequencies. So, the palette of sounds that you can kind of craft and learn and utilize with tape it's phenomenal. it's like a fantastic tone machine, really. And
Yeah.
I didn't on this session, everything is the same. We just picked what formula and speed we were going to use, and left it like that for everything. But honestly, you can get in there and you can change it you can have the drums be on a different kind of tape, maybe a little more saturated, and then maybe your guitars are. So maybe the drums are at 15 inches per second and the guitars are at 30 inches per second. Guitars are on GP9, so you can have that full level, but without all the saturation. Maybe you want your drums to be a little more saturated. The possibilities are crazy, and also all the presets there will also inform you about how these are tailor made. These presets are tailor made. Like, well, what is it about these choices that apply to this? This usage or goal. So there's just so much. And the beautiful thing about this platform and Luna and all this tape and Neve stuff is honestly the work that me personally, it just makes things so much simpler. You get to the result so much faster, so much easier. It's just like, I try not to overcomplicate things anyway, but if some of you have seen what I might do in Pro Tools versus what I'm doing in Luna, it's much more trimmed down in Luna. It's more to the point. It's more like working on it. It's more like working in a traditional studio on a desk with a tape machine. It just is just doing so much good stuff for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. Studio is one of those plugins where every time I've ever opened it up and tried kind of messing with these on my own, I mess it up way further. So yeah, having the presets down here, and especially the ultra linear ones are a cool place to start, because they're very true to, this is what your tech would be trying to make a tape machine sound like in a normal recording studio. It's like, you typically weren't setting them up to sound bad. You were trying to set them up to be as good as possible. But of course, with it being an extension or a plugin, you have the freedom to come in here and select, more saturated or more lo-fi sounding tape presets. And it is really cool that you're able to load up 4 different machines, which in a typical studio would mean, having a very large machine room and a very well-paid and fed tech to keep all those going.
Totally. I mean, what's also, it's like you can do some research, and lots like engineers like Phil Ramone. I read where Phil Ramone would after when he'd get ready to mix something, he'd have the playback adjusted to where the high frequency reproduce EQ on the playback was turned up a dB. So it's already brighter kick. Just off. Yeah, it's a little kick off the tape machine already before it even hits the console. Little subtle tricks like that. It's like, so maybe you don't need to reach for as much EQ.
Yeah.
So there's just so many little things you can get into. And so if you do a little bit of research and you have this now to play with, do a little bit of research on like what some approaches were in the past. The possibilities are huge.
Oh, totally.
With the way this is integrated, because honestly, if you're using like the Studer plugin in another DAW, it's just like the amount of processing power that it takes to have it on a lot of stuff kind of like sinks your boat, most of the time. But the way Luna handles it, the way that because the tape emulation is using the computer's processing, not the DSP that's in the Apollo. It's just like, it just goes a long way towards having great sound.
Oh, totally. And then similar with the Neve summing, you talk about a cheat code right here. The Vance, we had Vance on for the very first week, and he was upset with me because apparently I didn't tell him that there was a low impedance switch on the Neve and that it sounds incredible. So he discovered it after he had turned in his thing. He's like, "Oh, wait a second, there's this low impedance thing. I love that sound."
It's great. It's great, especially for drums. I was playing with. To be honest, I was playing with it in the mix, being on low, because it jacks the drum. It does saturate the drums more and jacks them up, and so but I kind of went back and forth on that. It made the drums too forceful.
Yep. Which is not the vibe for this one, yeah.
Awesome feature, yeah.
And that's this was we had Fab on, Fab DuPont was on yesterday, and we were kind of talking through some of the similar sort of stuff, and that was one of his big messages is like, just because you have it everywhere and it doesn't mean you need to go nuts with it every time. So like, and you did that masterfully on this session of like, you know, people will notice like this is a little bit different than we were talking about gain staging yesterday with Fab for a while. And, you know, the fact that you have VU meters on all the summing and all the tape gives you a good indication of like, you know, are you hitting it, you know, are you kind of pushing it and kind of stressing out and saturating and driving them hard, or are you kind of, you know, hanging out in the more linear or the more kind of softer areas of those processes. And you can definitely tell in this one, you're gain staging and the intention and kind of the effect that you're getting out of both the Studer and the Neve summing. It's subtle on purpose because you don't want it to overwhelm.
Nope. It's not, no one particular element in any of the signal chain, the busing, the tape, you know, the effects or, you know, the processing I have on the busing, nothing is working super hard. It's all just collecting a little bit of control and tone, you know, and carrying it along. And certainly on this tune, because of what it is, it's not, I am not pushing the headroom at all. I'm not, you know, there's nothing doing a lot of heavy lifting in any one particular place. It's all pretty chill. Just like the song, you know, chill and beautiful. Exactly.
Well, let me let's we've been talking about these things for so long. Let's hear back. Let me just pull up that second chorus, and let's hear with and without the Neve summing across the whole mix. We kind of did this a little bit when we were checking out the drums earlier, but for everybody following along at home, this is a good chance to hear the cumulative effect of Neve summing across the entire mix. So as we're playing back, I'll just switch it in and out. You guys can you know, train your ears on it. See if you can hear the impact that this is making. I mean, just every time I do that on any mix, it's one of those things. I can't tell you what it's doing when I put it in, but I can tell you I miss it a lot when it's gone.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a dichotomy. It's subtle and dramatic at the same time. It just brings, you know, it's like it brings the depth of tone forward. It has a better gluing effect. The depth of reverbs and effects is also, I feel like, accentuated. Things just feel a little bit skinnier and kind of like more pixelated without it, and just kind of like it just has a different depth. It's a little bit more plastic too. When the Neve stuff is in, it just like it becomes more full and round and wide, and the depth, the dimension of the depth really comes back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then, you know, obviously I want to be sensitive with your time here, and the cool thing is like we don't have to cover absolutely everything here talking about it today, because the best part is people can go download the session for themselves. Like that, we could sit here and do playback examples all day long and kind of geek out about the stuff, but I want to leave things for people to discover for themselves and get in here and solo stuff up and kind of play around with it. And, you know, a good recommendation, you know, keep the zip file that you download, because Luna, as you guys have all hopefully realized, it's always saving. So if you're coming in here and, you know, kind of making tweaks to the mix and, you know, cranking up the 1176s, you may want to at some point in time get back to, you know, exactly what Jacquire had, while at the same time being able to kind of make it your own and kind of discover some of these tools. So yeah, keeping that zip file around always allows you to get back to the session file as you presented it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and yeah, maybe when you open the zip for the first time, maybe just change the title, you know, so that it saves as kind of its own unique thing, like your playground. And then, you know, if you want to open the zip for a second time to have it as the original thing, then, you know, you've got that as well in there. they're unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always do that. And of course, me doing that live on camera meant that I renamed the session to Ben messed this one up, and then I messed it up even further by now Luna's like, where'd that session go? You can't rename sessions while they're open, guys. But real quickly, before we head out, let me open up the quad optimized session just to kind of show you guys some of the differences between these.
A good idea. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen this. It'd be good to see it.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what we did is we went through it's everything that's in the original session, except all of the audio tracks, all of the inserts have been committed, and also some of all the send effects as well. So like if you guys don't have Valhalla Shimmer, if you don't have the FabFilter Pro Q3, so if you're missing those plugins, those have all been committed as well. So you'll see this is a much flatter. Everything's just printed from zero and then brought back in. However, when we did the consolidation, we turned off the tape in the Neve summing, so that way those could still be, you can still get that sound of the tape and be able to play with that. So those are still happening live in the session, especially since those are native. They don't mess with they don't take up any DSP. So this will open up fine on a twin quad. And you'll notice now basically all the action's happening over here on the right with the buses. And then the FabFilter, I swapped it out for the Cambridge, but it's the exact same settings. The high pass filter might be a touch different on those, but you're just kind of cutting out low end rumble on those.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah,
that's all good, I guess, because that was the only third party plugin we had on there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah. That was the only one that was left in there after stuff was committed. But this way you'll see like the shimmer track and the Echoplex are now committed as audio files, but those were originally live buses. So yeah, this is a great way to open it up, and if you don't have those plugins, to be able to hear what those effects were doing, which is kind of the idea behind providing both. But we were very careful in preserving all of the stuff that we were chatting about earlier, of being able to come back in here and you still get the snare record. You can still get the record paths for these tracks. So all that information was preserved in doing this. So the quad one's available. There's a little session note PDF. There's a version of it that's in there right now. Like Jacquire said, we're gonna get his input list. We might add some of those photos. We'll kind of tomorrow's zip file might be a touch different than today's zip file, but the song and the session are almost exactly the same. So if you've already downloaded it once, you won't need to download it again.
Yep. The only change will be, like as we advised you before, that the automation status on the vocal bus needs to be turned on.
Yep. Yeah, it may come to you with this automation turned off like this, so just put that on to read, so that way you're getting the full love. And all these moves, these look too jagged and weird to have been done by pen. So you were doing this by, I assume, putting it into touch mode and then kind of moving the fader around. Is that how you do it?
That's how I do it. Yeah, I was just doing it with the track while I was doing it, because I typically, that's how I was doing it. Because I typically use a control surface, but that has not yet been implemented in Luna. So yeah, I typically automate, so I can kind of also have a visual reference. I automate in the edit page, and I use the focus track. Mm-hmm. So I'm mousing on the focus track in the edit page. That's what I'm automating.
Gotcha. So this way you can see, and do you kind of spill it and kind of thin it out like what we're seeing here?
Yep.
Yep. And then
totally.
This way, let me just do this off in the distance over here. So this way, like if you were, are you a touch mode or a latch kind of guy?
Touch.
Yep. So you can come over here and you can see, so essentially you were doing this, and you can see there in the middle of my screen, you can see the little red line showing me where my changes are. So that's
right, the automation for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Nice.
And then you can, with touch mode, you can kind of just wipe out, it's like wherever you're moving or touching the fader, it kind of writes over the top of it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
So I like it just because it's a good kind of fluid way of updating and kind of keeping things, because in touch mode it always returns to the status or the place that it was without automation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there ever instances where you would switch to latch mode?
Yeah, yes, but it's typically if I'm able to automate more than one thing at a time,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe on one track I need to turn something up or turn something down, and then wherever I leave it, I want it to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And then on something else, I'm actually riding it, and that's in touch mode. So I use latch mode occasionally, but it's only if I want to put the fader somewhere different and then be able to leave it there until so I can use my hands for something else. Is when I use it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's how I do it. Because what I like about touch mode is it returns to where I had it. So a general balance, if I've got the vocal at the general level I want it at, if I want to turn it up or down for one specific word or line, as soon as I let go, it'll return to where I had it for the overall setting.
Yeah, because that's essentially you've done the hard work of getting the whole thing pretty much in balance and where you want it. So now you just need to make the moves up and down, that's what we were kind of seeing there. Like even saw like the bass bus going into that third chorus, you got like a big push, to help accentuate that line, that transition to get in there. So yeah, being able to just like, bass level's good for most of the song, but there's this one moment where you want to push it further and pull it out in the mix.
Totally.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Well, Jacquire, I mean, anything else that we didn't touch on that you want people to know or to kind of look for or listen for as they're exploring the session?
Not that immediately comes to mind. I just, like I said, I'm excited that folks will get to kind of check out the different, just sort of what my thinking is and a little bit of my philosophy, not only in mixing, but like in the recording. Mm-hmm. Get to solo up some effects and that kind of thing, and just check all this stuff out. I think we've covered quite a lot, and I will get this input sheet over to you so people can look at it, because you're gonna be able to see what the processing was when we're using the unison and the record path EQ or processing. Mm-hmm. But like we mentioned, there's a few things on the drums that didn't go through the Apollo that were used like on the desk or something. The guitars you mentioned and the bass, and then so the keys, the vocals, the piano, the half of the drums you're going to see the record paths in the session. But so just kind of give you a little bit of the other information, and it also show you what the models of microphones are that we use, so that so the snare is like an SM57. So
yeah, you
can plug a 57 into that vision strip channel on a snare drum, and you'll get a pretty good representation of what we were doing.
Nice. Well, great.
That's it. I'm stoked. Thanks everybody for being here, and I look forward to what the feedback is, and people just enjoying this. This is a great opportunity, and thanks very much to Ben, to you, and Universal Audio, and Cass, and everybody that was involved with the session. Colton, I hope you're still on there. Mm-hmm. I just really super appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, man. We likewise here, man. We super appreciate you and especially Cass, man. Like this is I hope you guys understand, like as an artist, how big this isn't a typical thing that most artists are down to. Like, hey, cool, everyone can open up my session file and peer around. It's like it's kind of like. It can feel very revealing, which is it's a very special thing. So if you guys enjoy the song, please go let Cass and his folks know. You can stream this it just released this morning on Spotify, iTunes. You're gonna start. There's a music video that they put together that's got a lot of great footage from the recording session. So we had our great videographer was there with us filming the whole session. So the video I think that'll be coming out on Cass's YouTube channel. I saw it posted it posted to Instagram as well. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So Ben is right. It's a huge thing of Cass. So if you can give him a little love and appreciation for it, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. And again, if you guys are if you missed out in the beginning, you can download the session. It's just right inside the app here on the create page on the top right. Just click on download Wine and Lebanon, and that's how you'll get the zip file. And if you missed this is the biggest news of the day. Second biggest news of the day is that you can come up here and do check for updates, and you got to close your session to see the updates. And then as soon as you do that, you hit check for updates. And check this out, guys. We have 1.0.3 is now available. So we've been getting tons of amazing feedback from all of you guys, and we're implementing lots of fixes. And yeah, there's I believe over 250 pieces of feedback from the community are integrated in this week's update, which is fantastic to see. So yeah,
that's really incredible. I mean, like, hats off to you guys for being so accessible, and you know, and letting people, you know, have this feedback, this, you know, as they're using it, and really kind of, you know, the whole team is cranking away at improving stuff as we go.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
It's so cool to see. I've never seen. I've seen some other companies, like, you know, especially like in the video game world, you know, you see them doing updates all the time and fixing stuff up. But in the audio sphere, this is I've never seen this sort of pace and this sort of responsiveness to the community, which is fantastic to see. And so I guess, yeah, but Jacquire, thanks so much for joining us. If people want to reach out and find you, what's the best place for people to hit you up?
My Instagram or my website, you know, and right now my Instagram has the new YouTube page that I put up.
Oh, nice.
But my website is jacquireking.com.
Hell yeah, yeah! And congratulations on your YouTube channel, man. It's really cool. I watched the first video, and I noticed you posted a new one yesterday as well. But you're kind of similar to what we're doing here. You're giving people some inside looks and some walkthroughs of the session and what you've been doing inside of Luna, which is fantastic to see.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, man. My intention is, as I keep mixing stuff, to do little short videos of you know, mixing in Luna different things, and just kind of put those up there, and then, you know, I'll move on from Luna and discuss a whole bunch of other things over time on the channel. So I'm excited about it. It's kind of been wanting to do it for a little while, and this, you know, all this is a great opportunity to kind of tie things together. So, yeah. But yeah, the Instagram, the website will lead you to. I think the website's probably the best place because it is a conduit to all these other things. So
awesome. Well, great, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning, kind of walking through this, and even on a bigger scale, thank you so much for, you know, sharing everything that you do with us and our community. And yeah, it's always great to learn from someone who has so much experience and also generosity to offer everybody. It's truly special, man.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate you saying that. It's my pleasure, my honor and pleasure.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to Luna Office Hours. We'll be back here tomorrow afternoon with Terry Lewis. So we're going to be kind of walking through some of his sessions and seeing how he's getting along with Luna. So tune in. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. PST for that one. So I'll catch you guys there, and everybody have a great rest of your day. Stay indoors, wash your hands, and be nice to people. All right, talk to you later.